long as you know what you want, know what you're doing, you get over it. And climate change is like a marriage. We are married to our well-being on the planet, and we can't afford to let wars get in the way. There will be battles and wars that cause, all kinds of disruptions that will cause you to sleep with the dog for a couple of weeks on the sofa, and all of these analogies with marriage or cliches. But you see what I'm saying? I think this is the kind of language that maybe we need, as optimists, we need to carry on using. It's the bigger picture is always going to be climate,
But yeah,
just need to remind people about that.
I agree with you. But on the other hand, it's like, I think maybe it's a rude awakening, and how many, people have to really realize the urgency of this. And maybe that's what they were trying to do with this. Maybe not the best way to do it. You're right. Language is always important. But how do you stress to people that you keep saying, we've been saying this for I don't know how many years, and the world doesn't move. It doesn't, the world, our country doesn't. So I think maybe that's the intent there, to just get people realize that, hey, you keep this up, it's going to be really pretty bad. So I mean, I don't know what else.
The only bright spot from this horrible Russian invasion is it's going to force Europe to wean itself off gas far faster than it had planned to. So
good point.
But that's still going to take, 2 decades.
But
good
on
point.
the other hand, did you all read about the MIT, how they're trying to get very close? They're getting very close to breakthrough in fusion energy. This was about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And it's, as we all know, fusion is certainly cleaner. It has more power. And I guess what I got out of that, my biggest take is that, science is kind of moving in right directions also. I mean, there are more electric cars now in the US. I mean, but nobody's facilitating this, it's like nobody's really saying, hey, the science is there. Like we talked about this before, right? The science is there. I mean, if we can see some kind of hope, is that scientists are definitely working on this, and if they had more incentive and they had more support, we can accelerate that. But then,
So here's a question for you guys. Do you think that the climate action companies, of which there are many and growing, B companies, climate technology sector, do you think they have trouble communicating what they're doing to the rest of the world? I mean, it's just a question, because I'm looking to transition into climate as a full-time career choice, and I'm not sure how to get hold of it, from a career perspective. And I'm thinking of communications, and I'm thinking, who would be clients if I set up a consultancy or something? Who would be my clients? And someone said to me that a lot of climate companies have trouble communicating, as do universities and academics. Could this be a niche?
There's a professor, J.L. was a professor for a big university system.
It's one thing to know rhetoric, and I'm using that in the classical sense. How do you persuade people? How do you get, which the modern language is really messaging. I mean, the messaging is terrible. It's just terrible, and sometimes they're and early on we mentioned this. How sometimes we tend to just think that everybody sees the world the same way and thinks the same way and even speaks the same way, and you have to speak it in a way that's more accessible and make the science approachable, and understand. How do you simplify, which is really teaching, isn't it? There are teachers. We know that probably 80% of what we know, we can't completely use in our classrooms, because some of the students are not going to be there. You got to meet them where they are. They're certainly not. Right. So yet we have to try to get them to understand these very difficult principles. And how do we do that and still in a way, in a language that they can understand? Which is the same way. I mean, if you have a company that is, in sort of green friendly environmental business, and you know that the product you can work and also sell, because we live in a capitalist world and you have to sell it. How is that going to be? And then it's a good for everyone. How do you have people listen to you and invest in you, right, and say, well, ultimately, investors just want to make money, and they might be, they might understand that this is also very important, but they, you know, if they're going to give you money, they're going to, what's the return on it, all that stuff? How do you get them to understand the marketing part of it and the profit making part of it, which is, it's a reality too, right? Because you just want to get it out there and say, if we can just use this car, or if we can use this product or this whatever, how do we get it in the hands of people? Also to make them understand that by buying this product, you know, first of all, it's a good product, but at the same time, it also helps. It helps the environment. It's a challenge, I think.
Yeah, I think there's an analogous situation, like big pharmaceutical companies have the same kind of difficulty, I think, communicating. You know, they're big pharma, they're out for profit, and I think there's an analogous communicative situation, like with climate companies. We're doing some amazing things. It doesn't get filtered down to us. And big pharma, I think does some things that we just don't know about, or don't hear about, or don't want to know about. And it's funny because I interviewed a pharmaceutical lawyer the other day. He's a sixth generation pharmacist, became a lawyer. An interesting. We wound up talking not only about pharmaceutical law, but we talked about Rudyard Kipling. I'm saying that to Neil, you know, British and blah blah. And we talked about Rudyard Kipling and a whole bunch of different things. And I had wanted, and it was an improv chat, so there was no, you know, kind of script. But I had wanted to kind of talk about the disconnect between big pharma, because I know they do some good things, and you know, there's a knee-jerk reaction on my part, and maybe the public's part, that big pharma is, you know, it's all big money. But I see things on TV, like this morning, they had an ad for some kind of an orphan drug. Now, an orphan drug is something that many, it's rare. It's a drug that's made for rare conditions. So they have to go through the expensive process of research and manufacture and development and the whole thing. But it only really works for a few people, because it's a strain, it's a rare. So, but to answer your question, Alan, I'm not an expert, but I think there is a disconnect, with a big disconnect, and not enough information gets down. And I'm not sure not enough information gets to the right people, i.e., you know, the 20 Gen Zs I invited to come here. And yes, they're all busy, and half of them are in school and all this other stuff, but the urgency is not getting down to the levels of people who really should take the reins. My opinion.
The reason I mention it, Calvin, is because we're here to discuss what could be an interesting discussion for a recording to share, right? That's the purpose of this call.
Exactly.
One of the things that could be is communicating climate. You know, this balance between communicating the urgency and the gravity, but in a way that doesn't cause people to bury their heads in the sand. You know, that's really the fine knife edge here. Could that be a subject for a panel to discuss with the right people invited? What do you guys think?
I think it's central to what we would like to do, because we want to educate people, right? That was one of our main objectives. And yeah, I think that maybe we should talk a little bit more about that. How do we get the message out in a way that is understood by, you know, the population out there? I mean, that's the key, because I think really people don't know, and they also have the sense, oh, it's not a big deal, you know, really. I mean, how many of those people read that report? I doubt it. And
I doubt it too.
That would have been, you know, let's say if we had sort of an ad aid, because I can't think of a better word, but sort of a public ad kind of company or something, just somebody dealing with this, just sending messages out, that would be something that would be nonprofit. And just, I don't know, maybe it does exist, I don't know, but if they are, they're not doing a good job. But like just the goal is just, and the main objective of that is just to basically put ads and social media out there constantly, continually, with messaging about climate change, because it has to be, it can be sporadic, it has to be constant, and it has to be continual, getting messages out there, and especially social media, because that's, we don't know, I mean, I think I think Gavin is right. We gotta just break TikTok. We have to try to get through TikTok and all these different platforms, some way to get the message out, because after a while, people start, okay, another one of these ads. Oh, but again, not, I'm gonna just pass on this one. I'm gonna listen to this because it's engaging, right? That might be this crowdfunding all the time for all kinds of things. Why can't there be a crowdfunding for that? Just a publicity kind of agency, whatever, just dealing with that issue, right, to get it out there.
Yeah, I used to think that people just needed to know the facts, and if they understood climate change, they would then act on it. But clearly, that's not working. It's kind of the foundations, but it's not enough. So my latest mantra kind of aligns with Alan's, is that we need to give out positive action messages. So Calvin, you read my blog on climate optimism. It's all about the actions in climate change are all good for multiple reasons. So gas is a very topical example just now with Russia. Weaning ourselves off dependence on gas is good for the climate. It's safer in our homes because you're not combusting a material in your home, so there's no gas explosions.
Yeah.
There's no release of methane to the atmosphere from leaks. You can generate your power from local solar and wind, so you're not dependent on importing it from the Middle East or Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's multiple benefits to moving to heat pumps, for example. And it's the same with most climate actions. There's multiple benefits. So, even if people aren't bought into the climate story, a lot of the things we should be advocating for a number of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's hopefully a more powerful message. So some sort of discussion around that. Yeah, I'd buy into that.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that's great.
I like that.
The co-benefits, because that may reach people's psyche if they start thinking it's good for your health. We've seen what happened with COVID, right? I've never seen planetary behavior change so quickly as what happened with COVID. The masks and social distancing, and generally speaking, across the whole globe. I know that it wasn't perfect and many people didn't adhere, but the point is, generally speaking, there were policies put into place and people did it because they were all terrified of dying. So bringing the co-benefits, I think I agree with Neil, that would be a really good way of talking about communicating climate, wouldn't it? Because it has to have that. I was talking to Calvin before about, we call ourselves climate optimists, but what does that really mean? There's the danger of being interpreted as an optimist as saying everything's fine. And that's not what we're saying here. Everything is not fine at all. But so it's transmitting this message that everything isn't fine. But you know what? We can't afford to just go in and wail about it. We have to have action. And guess what? These actions have co-benefits. Your health, your economy, your right, all the things that matter to you, like your wallet, your bank account, and your health, your kids' health, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best examples is that a low carbon diet tends to be a healthy diet. Yeah. So you can sell it as low carbon
and cheaper
sell
too.
It as healthy, potentially cheaper. Yeah. So
Hey, listen, I stopped in 1975 because of environment. I think I've mentioned this to you guys. I stopped in 1975 eating anything with 4 legs. That so I was, you know, I was a younger person back then, but I knew that cows grazed on the grass that was watered, and we probably used more water to water the grass, to feed the cows to get to McDonald's, you know. And I was astute enough, and I cared enough, and I loved, up to that point, I loved meat, and I loved hamburgers and hot dogs, and I grew up to that. But I said to myself, I got to draw a line in the sand. So that was 1975. So I haven't, it's been 47 years. I haven't consumed anything with 4 legs. So what does that
Good
mean?
health.
It means
That's why,
I'm walking
that's why you're
around.
doing what you do. That's why you look like you do now. And
Exactly.
you've got the energy of a 15-year-old.
Exactly. It's because I'm walking around right now with 0 coronary artery plaque.
Exactly.
And I say it all the time. You know, it's this thing up here between my 2 shoulders is working really fine because the blood is flowing and it's not being obstructed by plaque and cholesterol. And so working with the environment, caring about the environment means I'm a pretty healthy guy. So, you know, there's a marriage there. When we're listening to the co-benefits, we were talking about COVID, how it brought the world together, and I also look at George Floyd and the reaction, the societal reaction to that, and how it spread clear across the world, and how quickly change became more meaningful and was affected. So so back to you, Alan, and I think this is a great topic, and we should do this. Is the whole world of communication, climate communication ain't working. One of the things I'm gonna do when I do any of our communications, when I put climate optimists, I'm gonna put in parentheses, everything is not fine.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm gonna do that.
So listen, for this, if we do a panel discussion on this subject, it would be really good to have at least one person from Gen
I know. I got to work on that.
Z, because otherwise we're just a bunch of old fogies.
Correct.
Talking, you know.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Maybe. Well, maybe. All right. I will not include you, Neil.
I'm probably older than you, Alan.
Probably. I don't know. But yeah, I think someone from generation Z or Z would bring an element of relevance.
Correct. And I gotta let me work on that. I'm gonna work on that. So I guess we're agreed that our next panel will be talking about the world of communication and climate. You know, what's interesting, in every communication I do when I'm promoting my channel, which in some cases does not have to do with climate. I mean, I'm interviewing all the people I interview. At the very end of all my promo pieces, if you ever look on LinkedIn, for example, I have all the information about the people, the person, or the different people that I interview. And then there's a whole chunk of climate information at the bottom.
Yeah.
And that is standard operating procedure for me. I mean, I just put it in there, and I take some of the headlines that Gaetano brings and sends me, and I throw that all in there. To me, it's just a process of putting that in. Do I think many people actually see that? No. Because that's...
You're laying the table. You're laying the table, you know?
I put it out there, and I'm just a great believer. The more stuff you throw on a wall, the better it is. And that's what we have.
And listen, for this subject, I mean, I agree that this subject would be great to talk about. Wouldn't it be great if you could get amongst your vast network, Calvin, of people interviewed and others? Do you have anyone who's in communications professionally? You know, because I'm not a professional communicator. I do it, you know, using sixth sense really, and whatever abilities I have. Wouldn't it be great to have someone who works in the media? I mean, as a guest on the show, maybe.
Well,
like how, you know, would that be a good idea?
Yeah, that would be a great idea. Somebody up there in the media
Can
world.
you find someone? Do you have anyone?
Or
Well,
a
I do.
psychologist?
I have to see if.
Or a psychologist also? Maybe?
Well, I'm actually going to be talking. Well, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be talking to an environmental professor at Rutgers. We just got hooked up. I do have a niece who's, I think I mentioned to you all, who's the global head of experiential and cultural marketing at Twitter. That's about as high up as you can get.
Sounds quite good.
Yeah, that is
Sounds
quite good.
Sounds good. Yeah.
I have to, you know, she's a millennial, and of course she's got to go through all kinds of red tape. If she'll do this, I have to kind of twist her arm a little bit. She's a very busy young woman. She's all over the place, but she would be great for this. And I'm going to begin my dialogue with her to see if she would do this and give us an hour to talk about the environment. It's all positivity, so I'll work on that.
Even if she gives us 10 minutes, Calvin,
I
that's
know.
enough. You know what I mean? Whatever she can do.
Yep.
Doesn't have to be an hour. Could be, because guests can come in and out, you know, like they have on these talk shows.
Correct. So I'm going to talk to her. I'm going to go into my head files and see other media people that I could bring into this. We've got some low-level people in our group. One who works, I think, at NBC. You know, like a little above an intern. So, but I'm going to work on that. So this panel is going to be a little bit of a process, and probably, you know, at some point in April. The reality.
Yeah, probably.
Yep. The reality. I'll start communicating to everybody what we're doing. I'm actually going to take this with your blessings and put this up on my channel as a planning strategy session for communication of climate information, etc. So I started to record this early on. I mean, and we'll just throw it up there, and you guys can throw it up there because this has been positive. We didn't say any bad words, you know. So it's we're not going to get censored. You know, it's funny. I tried to invade TikTok. I have this. So I tried to invade TikTok the other day. I never have, and I'm on TikTok. So I took a video of a young Gen Z. She's 22 years old. Name's Amy. She wrote a best-selling book. And Gaetano was putting a thing as reels. Yeah, that's Gaetano can't materialize, but he's here. But anyway, so Amy she's an amazing young woman. She wrote a book, best-selling New York Times, and a book of essays. She's 22 years old, and her thing is she almost died from anorexia, and she was about 3 hours away from dying. And they got to her medically, and they took her out of school. She was at NYU, and took her, they put her in rehab for a year. But she's just a fabulously interesting young woman, pure Gen Z. So anyway, I interviewed her. It was a great interview. It got a lot of views, and I have the ability now to make a clip. I've learned how to do this. I crossed over all generational boundaries. And I had a college kid come in here and spend 3 hours, and he taught me how to make a clip. So I made a 20-second clip of Amy's interview, and I threw it. That was my first real attempt. Watch this is actually a comedy thing, you know, for the Jimmy Fallon show. So I took this 20-second clip with the appropriate caption, and I put it up on TikTok, and I got it up there. But one minor mistake I made, I didn't necessarily read the community standards. You can't use the word anorexia. It's a bad word.
Oh, really?
Honest to God. So
Gosh.
I described the interview as she talks about her anorexia, and I got banned on TikTok for that, with a warning: if I do it again, I'm banned for life. So my one attempt, I was so happy. It was a perfect 20-second clip, and I put it in I put it in the caption, anorexia, and I violated their
That's
community
ridiculous.
standards.
How are you supposed to know that particular word?
I mean,
I
when you
should
see the
have
rubbish that's on TikTok.
correct.
You
And
know,
here I am putting a video that could help young people.
Wow.
yeah,
Right.
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
Probably is
Oh,
a
wow.
trigger. That's what it is, right? It's a trigger for some, maybe for some.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just a
Word.
bad word. So I read the community standards after, post mortem. I read it and I found out why I was in violation.
Post-mortem.
Well, I'm always interested in language. What was the phrasing that they referred you to not use that word?
There
I
are
mean, did they
words
actually
that-
said somewhere you can't use the word anorexia, or it was something?
Yeah,
Like-
because it may spur young people to become, I don't know, to become anorexic. It may raise their consciousness to anorexia, and it was just.
It's obviously a minefield.
Yeah,
It's obvious. It's all about mental health, isn't it? The whole mental health area
Yeah.
is a minefield. It's like if you go to a school without a really good reason, you're considered a pedophile. It's ridiculous.
we live in a very overprotective world now.
Ridiculous. Overprotect, absolutely.
What is a reel? Is that just a short video clip?
Yeah, 20 seconds. 20 seconds, and she never even mentioned the word anorexia in the clip. I just stupidly put it into the, with a hashtag.
How could you know? I mean,
So-
ridiculous. Well, I guess lesson learned, eh?
So we've got something substantive now, or we're going to have a thing, communication of climate change. Communicating climate change.
Yeah.
And
I
that,
think that's a good way to envelope the whole idea of optimism, rather than say, oh, we're optimists because of that misunderstanding that can so easily happen. That, it's kind of like downplaying the urgency. Whereas climate communication includes optimism, but it also includes the urgency, if it's done right, of course. I think that would be great to unpack, that's the sort of space where we can talk about this.
perfect.
Yeah.
So over the next, I'll sum all this up and I'll send the minutes of this
Great.
session up. I'll put it up. We'll begin to think about it. I'll begin
Great.
to look at people in media, journalism, professor. Maybe we can latch on to this professor who teaches young people at Rutgers. Hey, it's a process. And over the next few weeks, I'll send out notes. We'll begin putting this together. I'll reach out to some of the younger people. I was with a young man, a young college student who has a group of 30 or 40. This is so interesting. I took him to a basketball game. He's a Rutgers senior, and he formed a group called Campus Group. And there's 30 or 40 business students. It's so interesting. 30, 40 business students who get together and they provide free consulting to small business. Free consulting. And I just thought that was such a great idea. So I interviewed him. His name is Adam Some, S-O-M-E. And I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago. We went to a basketball game, and I took him to a game, and it was a great experience. He had never been, and point being, he's got access to some a nice collection of young people business. If I can bring some of those people into this,
Yeah.
so I would like to get several young people, Gen Z, millennials involved in this. It's their world, you know.
Yeah.
It's their world to inherit. It's their wind to inherit, and it really is critical. I mean, you guys are more of experts than me, but I mean, you know, now that we've passed the irreversible by, I mean, what more? You know, we've got the plagues, we've got floods and fires, we've got all the plagues that are slapping our faces, and it ain't enough. It's not enough. So we got to do better communication.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I'll be communicating with you guys in particular, with the rest of the group. And over the next week, I'll get you some stuff and we can begin to cogitate and think about this, and maybe we'll shoot for April when the flowers are coming up. And
I live up here in the North Country of New York, so April could easily be a snowstorm.
yes, you're right.
But maybe towards the end of April, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we'll shoot for that. You know, there's no gun. We got a lot of work to do, and let's do it right, and we'll do this right, and we'll build it the right way, and we'll go forth.
Yeah.
So, thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks for having this
Truly.
again and organizing it. Calvin.
Thanks, and
Thank you, Calvin.
we'll stay in touch. I'll keep you all in the loop, and have a lovely day.
You
And
too.
Yeah, you too.
you know,
Take care,
peace
everyone.
on,
Everybody.
and peace on
Bye-bye.
earth.
Yes, indeed.
Peace on earth. Yeah, peace on earth. All right, so
Bye-bye.
I will be in touch, guys. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
you, Calvin.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone.